I was muted. Hi, my name is Colette Bernard. I am an artist. I'm going to be doing a little talk for you guys today. I'm going to share my screen. Get this situated. All right, so I just graduated from Pratt Institute with my BFA in Sculpture and Integrated Practices, and when I was starting at Pratt, I originally decided that I wanted to go into graphic design because I had an interest in using digital media in my work. I was doing a lot of illustration on top of photographs and seeing what that looked like. And then it all changed whenever I was the woodshop technician for my work study program. And I realized that I definitely had an infatuation with sculpture and needed to, explore that more. So I took the big leap of faith and I switched from graphic design to sculpture. And one of my first sculptures that I did was over the summer for Pride in 2018. This is Mother Gature, so my take on Mother Nature. I was born and raised in South Louisiana, where Mardi Gras is a very big holiday there. And I wanted to kind of bring out my roots in that way, where Mardi Gras is, it's a Catholic holiday. Anyone can celebrate it though, where it's basically a big celebration before Lent. People arrive in costume and there's lots of drinking and partying, and it's basically the indulgence before you clean up for Lent. So I kind of wanted to bring that out in my costume. This is in New York City for Pride. And it was my first like soft sculpture, and the rake that I'm holding, I carried around in the crowds and would wave it around. So not only could my group find me if I got lost, but it was just a way of like announcing that I was coming, kind of like a little second line, if you're familiar with New Orleans culture. But this was a really big turning point for me because I realized how much I was into performance and costumage and creating physical, tangible objects. And during this time, so for context, I first started at Pratt MWP, which is Pratt Institute's upstate campus in Utica, New York. It's more towards Syracuse, about an hour out, so there's not much else to do besides make art. And I was really focusing on my skills there, so I learned a lot of, woodworking, welding, mold making, all the essential skeleton, like all the bones to becoming a professional sculptor, and being well versed in a lot of methods of creation. So here's a welded grasshopper that I created. And my first like large installation piece was at this campus as well. I wanted to have a conversation about my experience as a queer person with the internet. And I made this huge internet cursor out of wood. And this was my first time experimenting with bringing like digital objects to the physical world, because we've all seen an internet cursor at this point. If you've ever used a computer, it's what navigates you, it brings you places, you exit places as well if you're surfing the web. And I wanted to bring this motif to the physical, tangible world. And I thought, what better way than by using a natural process like woodworking. And it was something that I was getting a little more familiar with at the time too. So this was a really big turning point in my career as far as like subject matter and what I was exploring. So the piece, I attached it to these like mobile bottoms where you can, as you can see in the picture on the left, she is pushing it around a field it's like a park on the campus where there's like a 2-story building next door, and you can look down, and from a bird's eye view, it looks like this cursor and the loading wheel are at the same scale as they would be on a computer screen. So it was kind of like I was like creating a Windows home screen in real life that you could interact with and push around. It was a very physical activity. And this was my way of like, again, bringing these like very recognizable symbols to the tangible world. And that became something that I really wanted to stick with in my work conceptually, because the internet is a very big part of my life. I just graduated a few months ago, but for the past year, I've been working full-time as a content creator on the app TikTok, as well as Instagram. I make videos about the art world, art history, art theory, and I've been on the internet really since I was about 5 or 6 years old. Whether it was playing Flash games growing up to, you know, now as an adult, I'm on it all the time with social media. It's my form of income. It's one of the few places that I've really felt that I have a community, especially growing up in the Deep South as a queer person. The internet has always been like a safe haven for me. So I have brought it into my work a lot more after I had this like realization that it was so important to me. This was my sophomore show at the Upstate campus. I had to take them off of the bases to display them in this gallery, but yeah. Here's another costume that I made for Pride, also based on the internet. So these are the like symbols from Facebook. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the objects I'm holding, they're like the little symbol that comes up whenever you like a picture on Instagram. So that was like my theme for my costume. The signs also doubled as a fan because it was really hot. We were in New Orleans for Pride this year, and it was like 100-something degrees. And because I made the signs out of foam, like we were able to fan each other with them. It was very nice to have it double as something useful. And then I created this piece my junior year at Pratt called The Burden. And this piece was a performance piece with the sculpture that I created of an enlarged birth control container. And I was trying to shed light on the burden that birth control brings upon women and just people who take it in general. Because, you know, it's a very stigmatized conversation that, oh, birth control is supposed to be this saving grace, you know, like this wonderful invention, but there's so many medical complications that come along with it. It's actually very traumatizing for a lot of people, including myself. It's not all rainbows and sunshine. If you've ever taken it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The warning sheet, whenever you get your pack every month, is like the size of a poster board if you unravel the whole thing. Like there's so many side effects and warnings. It can be dangerous. So I did this performance piece, and you can find the full performance video on my YouTube channel if you just look up artist Colette Bernard. I carried the birth control container all around New York City to visualize this burden. And I was very inspired by Marina Abramovic's performance pieces where she would be dragging her feet and using her body as this physical weight. And I was very much channeling that performance art, meeting endurance performance world here. And a way that this connects to my relationship with the internet is that this video performance actually ended up going viral. It was shared by the feminist Instagram page, literally @feminist on Instagram, and they have an audience of 6 million followers. So, you know, little me, who I just shared my work on my Instagram and thought nothing of it. I woke up one morning to my phone going berserk from me getting tons of emails and phone calls and This piece was the first of mine to ever be shown in a New York gallery because of that viral video. It sparked a lot of conversation. You know, obviously there were a lot of, it was very split. There are some people saying like, this is so ungrateful. This is such an advancement in medical like history. Like women are so ungrateful. You know, I had lots of psychopaths who were like sending me really hateful messages. And then on the flip side, I had this wonderful community of people who take birth control messaging me saying, thank you for validating everything that I've ever felt about this pill that's ruined my life. I've had OBGYNs email me or follow me or repost my work. Lots of OBGYNs, lots of people who have suffered from endometriosis or anything involving like reproductive, like organ issues. One of the stories that really stuck out to me was this one woman who reached out to me and told me that it caused her to have like a grapefruit-sized tumor that almost killed her. But that every time she complains to someone about birth control, they try to invalidate her and say like, oh, well, this is not a real problem. And she's this walking example of how birth control can almost ruin your life, you know? So this was a very, very big turning point in my career. This was in 2019. It was a year before COVID. Yeah, October 2019. Let's see if this will play without exiting. I'll play it one more time. So something else I think that's important to mention is that I created this piece using a laser cutter and found plastic. So this was one of my first experiences using digital fabrication to create a sculptural piece of mine. That's very important in my work because after a certain turning point for me, I started questioning, you know, while I enjoy creating objects from the internet using a natural material process like woodworking, how can I flip that the other way around and create objects using a digital way of creation? So I'm not just taking like visual imagery, I'm also like quite literally like bringing something to life like Frankenstein, using more computer-like processes. So this was my first attempt at doing that, and this is, you know, laser cutting. And I've done a few other performances as well. I'm not going to show this one because I don't want to make anybody queasy, but you're welcome to look it up on my YouTube channel under artist Colette Bernard. This is my teeth performance where I am using teeth. Long story short, if you read the description of the video, there's more details, but I did this performance piece that was probably my most powerful one during my undergraduate career, where I gargled 7 wisdom teeth of my ex-partner, who was very horrible towards me. And I was kind of having this conversation about consumption and how love can be something that kind of devours you. And it's this intimate, but also invasive thing, especially if the relationship is abusive. I should have known because he had 7 wisdom teeth, and 7 is a very cursed number. Normally people have 4, but he gifted me those teeth when we were together, and I, of course, had to use them in my work, of course. So yeah, definitely check that piece out if you're feeling up to it. But I'm literally swishing them around in my mouth like Skittles, and they sound like Skittles too. Then over winter break, my junior year at Pratt, I went home for the summer. I'm sorry, for the winter break, and I really wanted to do a mural. And I started asking myself, like, why am I waiting for someone to inquire with me to start my career when I should be inquiring with other people? Like, if I want to do something, like, why am I waiting to be discovered, you know? So I emailed the Downtown Development Authority of Lafayette, Louisiana, my hometown, and I said, hey, like, I really want to do a mural. Here's my sketch. Do you have an available building in the downtown area? Like, I would love to do this. And they emailed me back and said, we'll actually give you a grant to do this at the Children's Museum. And it was a perfect fit. It was an amazing experience because, as you can see, like, the kids would come and walk by, and this is pre-COVID. They'd come by and see the work and ask me what I'm doing, and I got my first opportunity to tell children, like, you know, you can be an artist. This is my job. This is what I'm doing. And the parents would talk to them about it too, and it was a really, really great experience beyond just doing the painting. You know, the connections that I made with the passerbyers was great. So this was my first, like, big mural. I'd already done 2 murals for family friends before this, so I had some experience under my belt to show, like, you know, I know what I'm doing. But this was my first public piece, and it's been really great. And, like, to this day, people will send me pictures of them posing with the mural, and it really, like, makes my day. So it was based on I Spy. So as you can see, looking all around the mural, there's all these different objects and motifs and people of all different races and backgrounds and hair color, ages. You know, I wanted to make it as diverse as possible so that people can walk by and say, like, oh, this reminds me of myself. And I felt like, you know, as a queer Southern artist, like, that it feels almost like my duty that I need to be creating work for everyone, especially given that the South, you know, as much as I love it, it does have a reputation for being a little less inclusive. So, you know, be the change you wish to see. Then I created this piece. This is right before COVID, like literally a month before, where I'm doing another love-based piece where I'm discussing the nuances and just pain that love can be. So I scaled this rock wall that I created, and the candy hearts that I made are like, they're kind of like a humorous riff off of the typical Valentine's Day candy hearts that say, like, cheesy stuff like kiss me or like be mine. So the text on these say sweet nothing, Venus, unmatched, XOXO, triple X, and convenient codependent. So it was kind of my, like, witty approach of talking about how, like, love is this thing where we're constantly climbing and not necessarily getting anywhere. And I used a digital fabrication technique for this as well, where I 3D printed these hearts that I rendered myself in Rhino, which is a 3D, like, modeling software. And then I made a silicone mold of them, and I cast them in multicolored resin. Then I hand painted the lettering on the inside with just acrylic paint. Then the pandemic happened, and suddenly I don't have a studio on campus anymore. I was kicked out of my dorm at Pratt. They evacuated everybody. My mom actually worked for the Red Cross, so she kind of saw it coming a little before the school did. And she called me a few days before Pratt announced everyone had to evacuate. And she told me, just come home for the weekend, like, but we're not going to buy you a ticket home yet. Like, just come visit, you know? And I was like, oh, this is nothing. What do you, like, this is crazy, you know? So I packed a really small suitcase and I went home. But because I heard from my mother, you know, we're not buying you a plane ticket home yet. I had the feeling maybe I should bring my social security card and my birth certificate and all my credit cards and my money. Like, you know, maybe I should bring my valuables and my heirlooms and stuff, you know. So everything in my dorm that was of value, I took with me. And then we get the email saying, like, sorry, no more access to studios or anything on campus. We're going to have to make the semester work from home. And, you know, as a sculpture student, I was like craving making something with my hands. So I found another wall in town, in my hometown, and asked the property owner if I could do a mural. And they said yes. So this was round 2 of creating a piece for my area of Louisiana that I'm from. And Donnez-moi du sucre, je suis ton voisin is Cajun French for give me some sugar, I am your neighbor. And this was a really great way to get out of the house while staying safe and still creating as an artist during the pandemic. I feel like it was almost like essential for my mental health to get out and make stuff, you know? So since I was without a studio and I couldn't make anything large scale anymore, but I still wanted to keep working on my digital fabrication techniques and everything, I started making jewelry. So I started rendering jewelry in Rhino, the 3D modeling software I mentioned earlier. And I would send it off to companies like Shapeways. It's a 3D printing service. And they do casting in fine metals. So, I'm sorry, precious metals. So this was 3D printed in wax based on the model that I sent them and then cast into sterling silver. And this is like a panties on a clothesline that I created. And it was like one of my first attempts at like making something very tiny but sentimental. And yeah, it was a great experience. I've made quite a few pieces of jewelry since then. And speaking of making things, I also, over quarantine, had this moment where I realized, you know, I really need to start my career now. I lost my campus job because of COVID, working in the wood shop. And, you know, I just had this moment where I was like, I can't wait until September to start making money again. Once everything, you know, if we have class again, which we did. So I started an online shop where I started designing items and selling them online. And it has been an absolute saving grace for me. It's given me a stable income as an artist, and I'm working full-time now, managing my online shop as well as doing the online videos I mentioned earlier as a content creator. So this is a scarf that I designed in around November of 2020, and it was one of my most successful launches, and it was a really fun experience to design something and then to look up, you know, like where can I get these made? What fabrics do I like? So these are like electrically woven. Fast forward to senior thesis time. So around, you know, so this is like early 2021. I'm interested in using my modeling skills to 3D print, but I wanted to backtrack and get back into using organic materials with my digital fabrication. So Pratt has a ceramic 3D printer. And I became very close friends with this printer over the past year. It breaks my heart that I no longer have access to it. It's a very expensive machine and very finicky, like it's not like a normal 3D printer. It's very touchy, and what I started doing was while it would be printing, I would start moving the base that it would be printed on. And this was really fun for me because it was a way that I could, use a process I was familiar with while still doing something new. Because at this point, I'd had almost a year and a half worth of 3D printing experience, but I'd never used it with ceramics, and I was still very unfamiliar with ceramics. You know, I have wheel throwing experience, but nothing really with combining a process like this. And here is the end result. So these forms are based on crawfish mounds, which are native to my area of Louisiana. Here's my artist statement, actually. Inspired by the geometry of wild crawfish mounds found in her home state of Louisiana, Bernard replicates their shape via ceramic 3D printing. This duality of technology to mimic an organic figure conjoins the virtual with physical reality. Need I say more? Yeah, so I was just really interested in creating an organic shape with technological means, and it was really fun. So this is what the piece would look like if I didn't alter the printer at all, if I just let it print completely and then stained it with the iron oxide. But this is what it would look like if I played with the turning base and intentionally made it fail. And this was really funny because, you know, people in the 3D printing community would see these pieces and be like, oh no, what happened? And I'd be like, no, like I wanted this to, like this was intentional. The collapsing of the material, I thought it was really beautiful and almost architectural. So this was a really great experience for thesis. And I used the AstroTurf, the fake grass, to set the scene because I felt like just showing the pieces on a pedestal would kind of read as a vessel of some sort or like a pot. And I tested that theory. I had some people look at my work and they asked if they were pots, and I was like, no. So I made sure that the pedestal was close to the ground to where you were towering over the pieces. You can look into the holes over here. And the grass gave the context of like what these look like when you find them in the wild. Here's like a test mug that I printed and put a iridescent luster over just to see what it would look like. And then one of the more recent projects I'd worked on was I 3D printed this stamp that has my signature, some flower illustrations, and the date on it into clay, and I made them into coins. And this was a really fun experiment. I wasn't super happy with the results, but this is just, you know, part of being an artist is seeing what happens, you know. So this was the copper stain on top of them. It felt really good to start thinking in ways that I could incorporate my digital background, which is a lot more new and advanced, with something as like ancient of a practice as ceramics, and like staying true to my sculpture roots, you know, while also dabbling in technology. I also did this release recently where I made these, I got the COVID-19 vaccination patches, and this ended up going viral on TikTok. I had 500 patches and we sold out within a day. It was amazing. I gave them free with every order just to encourage people showing that they got it, because I wanted to create a way to show your support for getting vaccinated without it having to be like a disposable sticker of some sort, you know, like this is something that you could either clip onto your shirt or sew onto your jean jacket. Yeah. Here's a rendering of a piece that I would like to complete in glass in the next year. So this is like a digitally produced image, if that makes sense. This is not a real object. It's a rendering. And that's it. So I am done. If you'd like to reach me, you are welcome to email me at artistcolette@gmail.com, Colette with 1 L, 2 T's. On social media, my username is always Artist Colette. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for coming. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns, or if you want to just